my drug of choice was recognition. I wanted the attention. I will choose that over anything you put in front of me.
It all is going to come back to how I'm feeling. That's one thing that I've found out is if I'm feeling some type of way, the whole place feels that way.
Today's episode is all about mental health. We've really tried to start talking about more personal health on the Buzz because one of our core beliefs is that you cannot do well professionally unless you're doing well personally. And that's why we wanted to go ahead and highlight these episodes to specifically talk about mental health and how important it is in making sure that you are doing well both personally and professionally. With that being said, let's get into the show.
Brian, I want to get into this because you've already covered a lot of things and you're talking about influence. And I know that there are a lot of insurance agents that want to make a difference, that want to leave a legacy, that want to make impact. Talk a little bit about, you said you had to drop your network and regain a new network. You really had to look at your environment. You were being called to that. I'm curious what that process looks like now and what that process looked like at the time.
Well, and that's hard for me because relationships, friends, social was a currency to me. And it filled a lot of the void for what I should have been doing. But I leaned really hard into that just love, that recognition. And so when you look at personalities, I was always really good at finding people, because I'm a good friend, I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm going to do all the things, but I was really good at finding people that maybe saw themselves as a little bit less than me, either based on some kind of hierarchy that men have. Mike, you might understand, you know how when we walk into a room, whether healthy or not, men, we size each other up. So that's not just a statement. We really do that. And it's based on multiple categories, from what we feel coming out of this person from an alpha position, also maybe a financial position. And all men do this. It's just some of us are sicker than others with it. And it's what we base our confidence on based upon right now in that room. Where do we land? And I was really good at having a presence. When I come into a room, you kind of know I'm there, and I thought I was cooler than I was. And I built these relationships of people that were just right under what they might see me as their leader, kind of. Not in a cult way, but like, I like that. I like those colors. I like that promotion. I want to be a part of that. I want to be invited to his stuff. Maybe I can meet new customers or whatever. And over the years, that grows into this big social circle of people that kind of look to you as the person that's a hair more successful than everyone else. Well, then you start to live in such a way that doesn't glorify God at all. But it becomes this place that's very attractive to people that haven't yet found their heart position either. And so whether they're cheating on their wives, or not even the big time cheating, just the secretive type of stuff, or they're not handling their business correctly, or they're not handling their kids correctly, or they don't know how to do all that. Maybe they're just literally chasing what all the Instagram posts says, the cool house and the cars and all this kind of stuff. They end up underneath that fold. And so through that prophetic word, 5 times I received this message that the Lord is going to take me through the eye of the needle. And biblically, the eye of the needle is this, it's like this, if you look at the examples of it, it literally nothing can hang on to you because of the hole is just perfectly built. And as you kind of picture going through it, anything that could be strapped onto you that's not of him is going to be just taken off. And so through that eye of the needle, what's funny is this prophetic word actually mentioned relationships to me that I was going to have to prune off of my life and begin to take off. And for people that you don't know at all to be able to tell you about relationships of people they don't know and shouldn't, that right there will shake you just right there. Because how do you know this? And so what happens is the Lord, for me, it wasn't so much a business thing to answer the question, because the people I had positioned around me weren't going to really impact my business so much. They impacted my ego. They increased that currency, that fake kind of recognition that I could receive that was a drug. I've been asked a lot of times about drugs or alcohol or any of the crazier stuff, not to get too weird on your podcast, but like men deal with this stuff. So porn, different addictions that grab onto people, those haven't necessarily been my thing. I like to smoke cigars. I have some drinks here and there. My drug of choice was recognition. I wanted the attention. I will choose that over anything you put in front of me. When I speak to men these days, we've got a program one of my good buddies here started in Oklahoma called Band of Brothers. Thousands of men from all walks of life to doing it really good to right out of a divorce or prison come into Band of Brothers and they're accepted, but they got to hear the hard stuff.
There are thousands of agents across the country also struggling, and I know this because I talk to them every single day, but they just never hear of the struggles. They only hear from the people that are supposedly doing really good and crushing it, and so that's why we do what we do on the Buzz, man, is to really open up the lens behind both the struggles and the success that people are having. And so thank you for being willing to come on, man. It means a lot.
It's going to be a great conversation. I want to ask a question about, at the end of the year, when you were talking about we didn't have the rollover that we wanted, and you're looking at your agency as a whole, if you had to describe the emotions that your agency had and that you had, how would you describe that?
At the end of last year or at the beginning of this year?
End of last
Or
year.
both.
Before you did 30 and 5, you're
Yeah.
ending 2024. What are the emotions that you're feeling and your agency is feeling?
Man, it all is going to come back to how I'm feeling. That's one thing that I've found out is if I'm feeling some type of way, the whole place feels that way. At the end of last year, I was a disaster. We just didn't have the year. It's the first time in my career that it was that bad. I mean, when I say that bad, with no auto growth, no fire growth, no travel incentive, no scorecard, all things that I've become very accustomed to, things that I have taken for granted. And I knew that we didn't achieve those. Some of that was 100% on me, and some of that were things that, honestly, what I think to be the worst are things that I couldn't control. And so going into the end of the year, I felt hopeless. I felt like a failure, and I realized in the moment leading into January 1st that I had placed way too much of my identity in what I do for a living and not who I am as a person.
Okay,
Did that
so
answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're working through this process, and you're like, okay, I'm defeated, I'm hopeless, I have no gratitude in my life for the things that I used to have that are no longer here, and you're just down. What's your action step? What's your immediate, okay, I need to focus on myself versus focusing on my identity as an insurance agent? What's the first thing that you're like, okay, where do you go? What do you do?
Maybe this is crazy, but I mean, I've got a really good team of people around me for my mental health, my personal life. The first thing that I would say is, honestly, I go to my wife. She's a very wise person and has the ability to help me see the good when I can't. And I think there was a moment in time when I was like, I hate the way I feel. I just hated that. I hated feeling that I wasn't accomplishing what I set out to accomplish, because when I got into this business, I had a fire. I was out to prove some people that doubted me at specific places in my life. I can tell you who they were and where they were when they doubted me. Yeah, exactly. And I did all that, but there still was no joy, because it's just more, right? And you're in a profession like that. And so I went to her and I was like, we got to do something about this. And I think the biggest thing is just like, you get in here, it's no different than at the end of every month, you're back at zeros, So going into this year, I collected myself. I had my pity party in 2024, and I said, I know I can do this. I've done it 8 out of 10 times. what do we have to do? One, I got to have the right team, right? So we got to recruiting. I mean, you know, we got to recruiting people. And then we got to put in the work. We got to put in the effort. And it starts with me. I got to be more present. So I started being at the office more. My wife asked me at the beginning of the year, she says, I really want you to honor your commitments. That seems like it's very easy, right? But in a job like this, where there's an immense amount of flexibility, it's really easy to say, well, I might need to reschedule that appointment. And I still have a hard time with that. But that was one of the big things, was me showing up every day, 5 days a week. You know, and for a while I was working more like 4 days a week, and that's okay. I'm not saying that I'm never going to get back to that model. It's just, I knew going into this year, I was going to have to lead by example, be here, had to sacrifice some family time that, was hard, but that was it, man. Just showing up.
You participated in the 30 Life in 5 Days challenge, and you had really great success. So I would love to know just what your experience was during the 30 Life in 5 Days challenge, the success that you had, and maybe the continued success that you're still having a few months after the challenge.
Yeah, that's funny, because that was one of the things that I was thinking about is in the actual challenge. So we knew coming off of last year, very little rollover. We just didn't have the end of the year that we needed, that we were going to have to come out in that first quarter and really make a splash. And so I've seen you do this for years, and I was like, all right, we got to take some action. You know, we got it, because we got an uphill battle. And it was me plus one employee that was licensed to sell life. And she and I, her name is Drew, and she's an actual rock star. We took on the challenge. We prepared, which I think, looking back in previous years' fast starts, like, I'm shocked that we had the success we had, because I had never prepared like we did for this one. We had always just kind of flown off the cuff, and it just worked out. I have some regret because I'm like, man, we could have really shown up in some of those. But during the actual 5 days, we submitted and have since then issued 18. Okay, that's just with one employee, because I wrote 3. So she wrote 15 life apps, right? And seeing her just like, wow. And I was like, yeah, you can. You absolutely can, right? And we still have 2 or 3 in underwriting right now from that challenge. So we should end up, I think, at 21 directly related from that. And that's really all for one employee. I knew going into it that what I was doing was really more or less empowering her, because I knew that she was going to be capable of doing way more than what she realized. And, you know, she did have better luck on some of her calls than I did, but, you know, she beat my tail and I bought her lunch. That was the deal. So, it's cool, because those same, even like right now, brand new team member in the office, like, we're still using those lists. We're still doing, today, Drew, we're trying to finish it out. She says, what I need to do. I said, what do we have left from the list work that we didn't complete? And she's like, the mortgage list. And I said, let's go. You know, no way they're pacing with inflation, you know? So yeah, I don't care if it's $100,000, $50,000. If we got to supplement, let's supplement. I think we get so locked in on, we got to go write $500,000 death benefits on every single person, right? That's just not the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because you said my regret is that I didn't prepare like this before. What was different this time? Why did you come into this and say, okay, this time we're going to prepare. This time we're taking massive action? What was the difference there?
Well, I think the Weaver family has a unique ability to motivate folks. And Michael is a good hype man. And so really and truly, it's get the list. Right? Here's what list you need. They're not hard lists to run or find. And here's the word track behind it. And it's that there was I'm a huge visual learner. I think it sells. Michael, I think you've written a book about this, or at least put something like this in your books. But like, I always say, the yellow brick road, it can be this wide. It can be very wide. Ultimately, the way I run my office on scripts is I give you the yellow brick road, but it's up to you to use your personality and your skill set to walk on that path however you want to walk, right? But there's got to be some boundaries. There's got to be some borders. And that's what the challenge did for us is like, okay, here's the list, here's the word track. We practice, but then what makes Drew is not what makes Tyler, right? And so that's what was so beneficial for us is that it was all done for us. And I'm not sitting here having to type for hours trying to figure out, well, is this word track great? Or, using Chat GPT too much.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And so I would love to know specifically with Drew what, because so much of what we do is helping agents and people. It's really hard to change yourself, but it's easier to change your behavior and your patterns. And so I would love to know what behavior or pattern you've noticed that has been a positive change since the challenge with Drew or just within your agency that has helped not even only in just life insurance sales, but in all the production.
Well, that's a good question. I should get Drew to answer that. I think one of my greatest skill sets, is empowering other people to do things. I admittedly, like, I'm not going to be the best person at making cold calls. I didn't get into this for that. I'm not the best person at making cold calls. I'm not the best person at calling lists and stuff, but I hire people who are good at those things and then empower them to do that. And I think with Drew, she came from a State Farm office, who's far higher performing office than what we are. More team members, just different market area too. And I think that in that environment, that style, what she can do doesn't get recognized or didn't get recognized at the level to which it can here. So she can thrive here, smaller team. I'm way more, I'm not as rigid. Culture, like literally how you guys are talking to me, that is how this place is. If you walk into my office, you get a bunch of mini-me's because we hang out, we chit chat, we're constantly connected. And I think what Drew got was a little bit of that one-on-one attention. And I think when she saw it work, man, when she saw those term bumps work, she was like, oh, wow. This is like almost riveting. I wish we had a larger life book that we could just take this even further. And I think that's what I've seen from her is now she's not scared to have those conversations. It's what she's learned from the whole deal is, I don't know what our audience is here, but at our company, can I say State Farm? I can say State Farm. At State Farm, if you get approved at standard, okay, whatever you submitted for, you can purchase up to $150,000 more for no extra underwriting. We just send in a form, they give you an extra $150,000. Well, if it's preferred or better, you can get up to $250,000. So just this morning we said we were talking about auto rate increases, but anything, and I said ultimately to them, I said, how do y'all get paid? They said, premium. I said, so do we want to submit 150 or 350? Or do we want to submit 300 or 550? Mm-hmm. And I said, here's the greatest thing about what we do is that none of that is bad because every single thing we sell is good for the person buying it.
Yep.
Everything. Right. A bond still does something good for somebody. Right. And so like that, they're buying into that meant that, oh, wow, this really is, we just got to have the conversations, get the apps and then go. And for so long, I blew this thing up to be like, I got to have $1 million policies. It just doesn't have to be that way.